Joining us now is Cassie Smedile, the Deputy Communications Director for the Republican National Committee. Cassie, thank you very much for joining us tonight. So I want to start kind of at the top of the ballot, since that's what a lot of people are looking at tonight. As far as the Republican Party goes, is there a clear candidate, or I should say ideology, that being a progressive or a moderate, that the Republican Party feels more confident going up against come November?
Well, what we know for sure is that the Democrats are the socialist, progressive, far left policy. It doesn't matter who their top of the ticket candidate is. They have all coalesced to Bernie Sanders' far left positions. So any one of them is going to offer the same platform. And that, for us, next to President Trump's record of results for the American people, that's a great conversation that we want to have. We are fighting for the American people. We are empowering the American people to go out and live their American dream. The Democrats are just saying, let's take more of your hard-earned taxpayer dollars to create more government programs, to have more government control over your lives. That's the choice this election, no matter whose name is at the top of their ticket.
I think it's an interesting point because we've heard a lot of Republican candidates on this show come on and say essentially that no matter who you vote for, they all want the same policies. It's just a matter of how you get there. Of course, Bernie Sanders comes out with that more revolutionary type of tone, but then you hear people like Joe Biden or some of the other so-called moderates who would say the same thing. We want to get to universal health care. We just need to do it in a more incremental process. So I think that's an interesting point that we might see play out a little bit more come the rest of this campaign cycle. But I want to talk about Bernie Sanders specifically because right now he's the front runner. We've seen Democrats actually show some concerns about having him on the top of the ticket. If he is at the top of the ticket, do places like the suburbs become more competitive than they were in the past, or other places where Republicans were kind of losing a grasp on those seats?
Well, absolutely. But I would say that that's because of this long process of the Democrats more publicly showing that they have moved to the left. Whether that's with Ocasio-Cortez and the squad becoming the mainstream in the Democrat caucus in Congress, whether that's Congress incessantly going after investigation after investigation and baseless impeachment measures because of their Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, this is all the culmination. Bernie Sanders is the culmination of what they have allowed to happen to their party and what they have turned into, frankly. And the problem for them, the reason that the suburbs are in play, the reason that urban areas are in play in a way that they haven't been before, or that Democrats have rather taken for granted, is because lifelong Democrats no longer feel they have a home in today's Democrat Party. That's why we see them coming over to us. That's why at any given Trump rally, a quarter of the attendees are registered Democrats. They either like what President Trump is doing and want 4 more years of it, or are terrified of what they're seeing in their Democrat Party and are done with them and are moving over to us, and we're happy to have them.
And we've seen that play out over the years, actually. I like to think of this one example. So the Democratic Party calls themselves the Big Tent Party, but that tent seems to be getting a little bit smaller as they kind of become more, I would say, a little bit more polarized on certain issues. And I think one that comes to mind over and over again is in Missouri, when the Democratic State Party there kind of purged pro-life Democrats from their platform, said that's not something that is no longer affiliated with the Democratic Party. And you've seen the state of Missouri slowly but surely kind of come more to the center and slowly to the right. I mean, we saw Claire McCaskill get unseated by Josh Hawley. So I think we're starting to see exactly what you're saying right now play out in other states across the country right now. So acknowledging that point, what is the Republican strategy going into the November elections? Is it really slamming home the points of the economy and different things like that, or is there an issue that they're rallying behind?
Right, and I would just underscore that DNC Chairman Tom Perez also said there aren't room for pro-life Democrats in their party. So this is party-wide. But to your point of how are we then engaging and welcoming and coalescing with these new people who are coming into our movement, whether they be Democrats or first-time voters? Part of that is we've got a great infrastructure in place. With the support of the president and other Republicans in the state parties, we've put together an infrastructure that, frankly, we've been working towards since about 2014, really came into fruition in 2016. And through our incredible fundraising, we just announced $86 million in February alone between ourselves and the Trump campaign. We're able to invest in these states in a data operation that engages voters on the issues they care about the most. And if that's the economy for you, what about the economy? Is it a kitchen table economy and what's happening locally for you? Or do you care about it more nationally? You want to talk about school choice? We want to talk about that too. You want to talk about pro-life and family values? Absolutely, there is a place to have that conversation, and we're ready to have that. So having a data-driven ground game has allowed us to engage with people who, frankly, we didn't know existed maybe 4 or 8 years ago because they either weren't involved or they were lifetime Democrats, to come in and say, now that you're with us, here's how we can not only ensure that President Trump has your vote, but that you're going to be with us for a long time, and we want you to be a volunteer and an activist and get your friends and your families and your babysitters and your siblings all involved too. All of that can happen because we have the infrastructure in place, and the Democrats cannot say the same.
No, and that infrastructure and organization becomes even more so important when the parties are kind of going more to the polar kind of opposites a little bit. It kind of leaves a little bit more room in the middle right there, where it becomes so much more important to go knock on those doors, to get those people out voting. And what you're speaking about right now is something that can't be taken for granted. You can't replicate a good organization strategy, good infrastructure, and good volunteers. That's something that even money can't buy in these campaigns. But Cassie Smedile, thank you very much for joining us tonight.